Hello and welcome back to the Art Saddle Podcast, your weekly music news and chat podcast. I'm Copper Kelly, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Keenan Flannery. Say hello to the lovely people, Keenan.
Hello, lovely people. How are you doing? How are you, Copper?
Jeez, I'm all right. Happy seeing your face again.
Ah, Jesus. You're a charmer of my own heart, yeah. Yes, It's lovely to be back. We had a bit of a hiatus for a while, and we did our first episode last week, and you know, it's kind of nice to have two in a row. You know, this is a shocking behaviour, keeping on the ball. So hopefully this keeps going for the near future.
That's it. This episode we're actually joined by a very special guest. I don't know if you'd like to introduce our guest, Keenan.
I guess, well, he's a dear friend of mine, and we've done many gigs together, and we've known each other throughout the years. He's a phenomenal songwriter, a talented wordsmith and storyteller. He is the incredible Colm Gavin. Welcome to the show, Colm.
Thanks, lads. Thanks so much for having me.
How are you keeping?
Good of a windy Sunday. Brought to you by the good people at Lomza, Malt Beer, Export Lager, Walt, Water, Malt and Hops. I don't think there's a beverage more fitting.
You'll see a free slab outside your house now tomorrow, I'd say.
This is what I'm hoping for. I'm going to mention Harvey's Bristol Cream, Moe and Shandon, the good people at Yellowtail, Cabernet and Sauvignon, and hopefully there'll be a box of something at each of our doors this side of Easter.
We talked about this a while ago, probably first couple of episodes into the podcast, and we said that if we just kept name dropping people, would someone eventually just be like, fuck it, I'm going to sponsor them for the
You know what? Like, it's strangely enough, when I first went solo, I was working, a friend of mine, Kyle Roach, he was looking at being my Paul McGuinness, and he tried to get me a sponsorship deal with San Pellegrino. Do you know the cans? If there's like an orange, there's a blood orange, there's a lemon, but it's like a hazy lemon, and there's like a pomegranate.
It's like the ones you get in a coffee shop if you want a lemonade.
Is that the one with tinfoil on the top?
It's tinfoil on the top, and it's usually a blue, kind of like an aquamarine swimming pool blue. And he sent them this big press release about, this is Colm Gavin, he's a solo artist, he's up and coming, this is his new EP, and he's a big fan of San Pellegrino, and would only love if you would send out a slab of your, I think it's bitter lemon. It's like hazy lemon or bitter lemon or something. Now, needless to say, they never got in touch, but that was one of a few press releases we sent to companies who...
That's worth a shot.
Well, imagine it worked though. You know, like for the rest of your life, they just keep sending you slab upon slab of bitter lemon.
Every video you do, then you just have the little can in the corner or on the piano or something.
Or, you know, like the news bar run across the bottom of the screen, sponsored by San Pellegrino Blood Orange.
It could happen someday. You never know.
It's the dream. It's what you walk towards.
There's time enough. Yeah.
I suppose the main crack of this podcast is music news. So before we get to chatting about Colm, about himself and his career and that, I suppose one of the biggest news stories of the past week was, of course, Neil Young, I suppose, removing his music, or Spotify removing Neil Young's music due to Neil Young giving an ultimatum to Spotify to remove Joe Rogan and his, inflammatory and possibly wrongful
defamatory.
Defamatory.
Inflammatory is more like an inflammation of the bowels or something. Yeah, defamatory.
But inflames.
That's what Copper had last week.
The old squits.
Yeah. So, Neil Young wants to remove Joe Rogan off Spotify, or he'll remove his music. So I suppose, what way did that go, Keenan?
Well, I feel like it went the way anyone would have thought. I seen a great post the other day. They're like the search term "Who is Neil Young" shot up by 97%. But there's two kind of sides that I see as. I see like the kind of people that, you know, there's the anti-COVID and there's the kind of pro-vaccine kind of stance, and then there's the also just common sense business stance where it's like Joe Rogan is on, like, what was it? It was like some mad money they paid him. 10 million, wasn't it?
100.
Was it 100 million? I thought it was more like 10.
It was the rumoured amount.
Okay.
Well, look, it definitely wasn't 10, it'd be way more than 10.
It was mad money to go exclusive. Do you know, that kind of way? So I think like as a business standpoint, like, you know, like as much as it's talking about this kind of COVID thing and all that stuff's going on, at the end of the day, it's all about making money, you know, especially with Spotify. Oh, yeah. So, that happened. But apparently they lost $2 billion in market value when he took his music off. So
that's it. And a lot of subscribers, apparently. Their customer services are overwhelmed at the moment. Apparently people unsubscribing, which I actually unsubscribed like a month ago because I was going to go over to Apple Music just because of, I was saying on the last episode, just because of the experience of going on Spotify now. It's literally just podcasts. I can't even see any music to, you know, decent recommendations of music to just listen to. Do you know what I mean? You have to really go searching for music on Spotify. Where I go to Apple Music, it's all Apple, or it's all music, and you can see, oh, there's a new such and such album. I'm going for that straight away. Without having to think about stuff, and then you're, oh, I'm not in the mood now anymore. So I kind of jumped the ship already. But what's your thoughts on this, Colm, and the whole situation?
Like, are you talking strictly about like Spotify or Neil Young's argument?
Neil Young, so go back to Neil Young and Joe Rogan. Yeah.
Neil has always been hugely outspoken when it comes to marginal fringes. So, for example, I don't know if you remember when he brought out Pono. He made this thing. I probably have something here. It was about this size. I know people listening can't see this. About this size of something that was to be the equivalent to an iPod, but it was like a triangle. I don't know what you call a long triangle.
High fidelity audio.
High fidelity audio. And this was going to be the answer to all our listener needs. Like that he felt from the time you get it, which is true, what you hear in the studio is never what you get on the final take. Then he kind of vineged on that a few years later and said, well, actually, as long as we have high fidelity recordings, I don't care if it's on streaming services like Spotify, because as far as he was concerned, the money is in touring. Nobody, whether it's physical copy, vinyl, shellac, tape, that really the money now is on the road and in person-to-person merchandise and that kind of thing, that streaming services were never going to be the be-all and end-all. But now I think it's more to do with the fact that he's pro-vax. And so many young people listen to Rogan. And in different constituencies, there's an overwhelming amount of people between 18 and 35 who haven't got the vaccine. And I suppose he's attributing a lot of that to the likes of people like Joe Rogan spreading misinformation or what he deems to be misinformation. So like it's a weighted subject. But, Auntie Joni is sticking up for Uncle Neil, so... You know.
Yeah, she is. We've seen that as well. And apparently there's someone else that we couldn't get the name of. Did you end up picking it up, Copper?
Oh, no. It's Neil Bogren or something, I think.
Nils Lofgren. He's the guitarist in Bruce Springsteen's band.
Okay.
I think he pulled his music off as well, perhaps. Joni Mitchell. And this guy, Nils
Lofgren. Yeah.
Nils Lofgren, that's it. There you go. So three of those have pulled off their music, but a lot of people haven't, obviously. Like for ourselves, would we ever consider taking our music off?
You put up a great thing today, Colm.
Yeah, what was that you said exactly?
It was. Do you want to repeat what I said?
It was a great picture of Oliver Reed when he played Bill Sykes in Oliver. And he says, when you want to take your music down from Spotify, but you don't want to ruin 23 fans' lives. I thought it was fantastic.
And that's it. And I think that also goes back to what we talked about. Like, I think in one of the first episodes of this podcast, we talked about people kind of standing up to like tycoons like Spotify and kind of going, well, we want to get paid more fairly, or we'll pull our music. And a lot of us, it's the kind of upcoming artists that kind of would benefit the most out of kind of better pay off Spotify. But yeah, if we started pulling, our music up, it's not really going to make a difference, unless...
And you're only inconveniencing the people that do want to listen to your music. Yeah. It's not their fault.
You're kind of stinting your own growth.
There you go.
Yeah. You want to have your music accessible by as many people across as many platforms as possible. So that's the way I look at it. You don't want to punish the listener for Spotify not paying much.
No, of course not.
No, I found that so funny when I seen the thing you put up. I mean, it fits like...
Another one I saw was Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, another one I saw was a poor Neil. He'll have to do without his $6.27 from streaming.
That's right.
Just,
no, and look, I mean, I was being a little bit tongue in cheek as well, but just what I meant was I look at the music industry today as there's levels, there's tiers, and the category that I would put myself into, and I think sort of between the three of us, we all kind of fit into it, is you could do a headline gig at the Grand Social and the place is packed to the rafters, and the following week do a covers gig in Phibsborough and there'd be 4 people and a dog in the bar. And that's a category of musicians where it's 1 week triumph, next week dismal, 1 week, you know what I mean? It's not like you're on the payroll with Taylor Swift's backing band and you have confirmed work for the next 18 months. And it's that portion of the music industry that I think is disproportionately left on the sidelines when it comes to this kind of thing. Like if you have anything less than 100,000 streams on your Spotify, you're not making enough money to even make a weekly wage from it.
Yeah.
And there is an attitude, and I don't mean to rant at all, but there's an attitude amongst people in sort of 14
we like our rants, go ahead.
I'll go for it. So there's an attitude amongst young people in the 14 to 22 bracket who are like, if you're so famous, how come I've never heard of you? And it's dangerous. And it's an attitude that means unless you're in the sort of the top echelon category of more than 3 million streams a month on Spotify, then like I read a really interesting thing the other day that the BBC have found that 91% of musical artists of any description in the UK live on less than £10,000 a year. So that means you're 10,000 less than what qualifies as minimum wage. So that's 91% of the music industry live on that in Great Britain. Yeah. That's not even taking Ireland into account. That's a reality. So there's people who are doing concerts in the Olympia in Vicar Street who at the end of the month can't pay their bills. I don't think this is talked about nearly as much as it should be.
Yeah. I think with a musician, if you're, I suppose, on a stage and people are listening to you and cheering for you, people must think, oh, they're doing really well. They must have a nice car. They must have, a house.
But Copper, the time of doing the Late Late Show meant that you were a millionaire doesn't exist anymore. Like exactly. I know people now friends of mine who've done the the Tommy Tiernan Show, and they work a day job. So there's something's wrong here. And I think what it comes back to is, even despite the pandemic, and maybe you guys can weigh in on this, there's a lack of an appetite to attend live music. Even though it was what people were crying out for 2 years, I still think there's a kind of a reluctance. Maybe you have differing opinions on that.
I think it goes from person to person. And like some people I would know with, especially people that are kind of working in it's more of us, people that are working in the music industry. I'm kind of more intrigued to go like see people that are quote unquote less famous, but it is like, and I was kind of thinking that there's going to be a big surprise of music. Everyone's going to come to shows. But at the end of the day, people are people and people don't want to spend money on uncertainty. They go to see 50 Cent and they like 50 Cent. They're happy out. There's still this hesitancy of going, well, there's these 3 artists, Keenan, Copper and Colm are playing a show. You should come down. It's tenner in. It's like, well, I don't know them. Will I like it? Will I enjoy it? More so than other people's outlook on it, which is it's a night of music. We haven't had one of these in 2 years. Who really gives a bollocks? It's that kind of way. And
how does a Keenan Flannery become a Towns Van Zandt? How does a Copper Kelly become a Willie Nelson if there isn't the attitude and the appetite of people to go to a show and to take a chance on it and say, it's 10 quid, it's 10 quid on the door. Like if you're going, how does someone get even the chance to be in front of a bigger audience unless you're going to do support slots for the next 4 or 5 years and pray to God all those people are going to come to your gig when you do one?
Yeah.
That's it.
100%.
Especially coming up as writing original music as well, this day and age, just it's kind of, I suppose obviously you find out yourself, you write a lot of your own original music as we all do. How do you find getting out there with original music compared to playing covers? It's much harder trick?
Yeah, like see, I don't want to sound like a petulant child because I'm really lucky, and I think the last 5 or 6 gigs that I've done solo, I like with my own group, have all been sold out gigs, like the Workman's Club, I'd launched my EP with Charlie McGettigan 2 months ago. You remember the turnout, Keenan, at Christmas time in the village. I mean, you're talking 220 people deep. Yeah. Like, I'm not speaking on my behalf. Like, I'm very fortunate that I do conscious of original music, and I'm very lucky that I have sort of I would call maybe a cult following that will come to the shows and buy tickets and buy merchandise, and that's great. But I'm talking about someone who's maybe 10 years younger than I am, who hears the Keenan Flannerys, the Copper Kellys, the Claudia Buckleys, the Josh O'Keefes, and thinks, I want to do that. And if they're not going to take a chance on them, do you understand where I'm going with this?
Yeah, 100%. It's like kind of what look do you have? And it's interesting you say Josh O'Keefe. And there's some great names that I've been looking into over, like Zach Bernson and stuff all over Nashville and all. They're doing what we do here. They're gigging and they're playing. And there's another fella, Dylan Walsh, he's an Irish fella that's over with Josh O'Keefe. Mm-hmm. And they're just playing constantly. And you're looking at the videos and like, I adored, I picked up Josh O'Keefe's records when I seen him on Gems on VHS and stuff like that. And I was like, he's deadly. He's incredible. Like, he's the kind of the new kind of Woody Guthrie, but when you look at the shows, it just, there's an element, it's still in my head. It's almost me glorifying it. But when I see pictures from his shows and the recent stuff I'm doing, it's like, it's not as packed as I thought it would be. And if I was able to go, I'd go to them every night. Mm-hmm. But it's, because it's almost like he's a distance away. I fell in love with his music, and it's a weird kind of concept of going, maybe, even looking at my own, like maybe I'm not taking as much chances on music in Ireland that I should be, kind of way I'm looking at these artists from across the sea that I can't go see. I'm like, I'm falling in love with their music online. Maybe I should take a chance, and maybe I should take on to more shows in Dublin and kind of risking it and going, I'll give it a chance, see what it's like. I think if everyone had that outlook, everyone said going, here we go, it's a Saturday, let's go and do something.
Here's the question then, why don't you?
That's the thing. Now with stuff coming back, I'm like, I'm going to bite the bullet and drag as many people as I can along. Because it's almost like, I think gigs are still seen as people find them very scary in terms of a social setting. People still don't like going to gigs on their own. I don't know, how do you feel about that with going to gigs on your own, and that like both is like...
Copper, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I've gone to a few gigs on my own just because be a particular like death metal band that no one else likes, so I just go to it on my own and just sit in the back and enjoy it. But obviously you do like to have friends with you and that, but I suppose part of it is going into this place where everyone's breathing on top of each other and all this stuff, and after 2 years of stay away from each other, you're like, oh Christ, should I be here? It's that element of, I suppose, fear there as well for some people.
So many factors at play. You can't think about
that's a factor. So back to Neil Young. Do you think, I suppose, it's a strange thing, he does want to censor a person on the platform. But then again, some people argue, Joe Rogan is spout a whole head of shite. What do you think in that regard? Do you think Neil Young has the power to demand, get rid of that person or I'm gone? Do you know what I mean? That's a bit of a stretch.
That maybe is a really great way to look at it, actually. Yeah, I didn't even think of it like that in terms of censorship. Do you want to take a column, or I can kind of
go for it, Keenan? Yeah,
that's something that didn't, when you started saying it, it makes so much sense, and it is the element of like, how much censorship do we give, and how much censorship do we put upon people? I think there's, like, especially the past couple of years, there's been like there's a high talking point at the moment of people speaking about censorship, especially in like the comedy scene or stuff like that. Things like, I think Bill Burr said, like, it's like being in a room where the walls are getting closer and closer. There's more and more things you can't joke about. And he goes, you're just trying to, like if you go against the grain and you try to push against them walls, like you're not going to move them. You're just going to hurt yourself and your own career. So he's like, you're kind of like I think he said, like playing Twister with the walls. Like, but it is an interesting idea of like regardless of which way you look at it, you know, some people are on Neil Young's side, but then there is some people are on Joe Rogan's side, and you know, especially a company like Spotify, where their main goal is not to be I feel like I don't really think they give a shit. I think their main goal is making money.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
if whatever decision they make, they're kind of pushing out one side or the other. And then at the end of the day, Joe Rogan seems to make the more money. So it's like financially, it's the right route to take for them. But like morally, and I'm sure there's people in Spotify, I'm sure the company has been in a bit of turmoil from some people within, kind of having differing views on it. And I actually might look into that to see if anyone actually left. You know, that could be an interesting thing to see. Like, did anyone quit that
Apparently
job?
there has been kind of, I suppose, strife in the background since Joe Rogan came on as exclusive. You know, there has been a lot of turmoil, I suppose, inside Spotify. But what do you think, Colm? Do you think Neil Young, I suppose, had a right to? I suppose that's the right way to say it, but you know what I mean? Should he do that? Should he have done something like that?
Look, there's two streams of consciousness here. One is the whole idea of cancel culture, and the second is the rights of the artist. And I think where someone like Joni Mitchell is weighing in this conversation is more to do with how artists get treated by Spotify. Because when Neil Young raised the point and says, it's me or Joe Rogan, he's doing it to make a stance about the spread of false information. He's not accusing Joe Rogan of anything. He's saying, on your podcast, you validate people coming on and saying this, and this without a fact checker. And it's influencing young people to not get a vaccine, which in his belief, in turn, is infecting people, making them sick and keeping them in a state of further pandemic. Bearing in mind, Canada at the moment are in upheaval, his native Canada, trying to get out of their lockdown restrictions and stuff. Look, sideline to that, it raises a bigger issue about the way artists are treated on Spotify. In a country like Ireland, there are unemployment systems and wage subsidy systems for those who don't earn enough, so that it brings them up to a minimum wage bracket. Spotify will happily send you an invoice of 3 cents. Now, that brings up a bigger question. Does every artist deserve to make a flat wage through streaming services? Like, you get this no matter what? Like, is that good business sense? And then should you have to qualify? Like, can you only be on a streaming service if you have more than 100 people streaming your music? There's so many questions that come out of an argument like this. Yeah. But it is a conversation we need to have. Because if 91% of working musicians in the UK earn less than £10,000 a year, we need to talk about this.
And it's just so many factors at play with it. And I think that's what stops people from talking about it. You know, I think Spotify as a company, I think they would be more than happy. Just even before this stuff with Neil Young, like they've been going for many years on the same, and we've been talking about this. Maybe not doing a lot, but musicians have been talking for years about pay, about being treated right. And Spotify is perfectly fine at just staying silent, because, you know, at the end of the day, we still keep our music up there and we still pay for subscriptions. And unless like the musical world and the public world are kind of informed, especially the public, you know, musicians are one thing, but if you can inform the public, the general listener, you know, because it's a different outlook, you know, like as a musician, you want one thing, but like the easy accessibility of music nowadays is also like a phenomenal thing, you know, as a consumer. So there is an element of going, I want to get paid more. I want to get paid enough for what I think is worth and the art I put into. But also, it's nice that I get to listen to whatever I want for €10 a month or €5 if you're a student, you know? So there is like two mindsets on that. But I think if we can inform like the public and the general listener that, you know, may not be musicians, but kind of understand the way this is kind of run and the mistreatment of it all, maybe we might have a shot at getting voices heard. But at the moment now, it's, you know, the odd musician pulling out. It's really, it just doesn't really do much. And Spotify is fine with just keeping things silent. You know, it's...
Funny thing is, I keep checking the last few days, checking Spotify here in Ireland, seeing, is Neil Young gone off it yet? And he's not. I think it might just be America.
No way.
But he's still on Spotify there now. I just checked before we came on live here. But apparently the other streaming services have kind of had a field day with it, saying Apple Music are saying, oh, we're the home of Neil Young. Tidal creating proper, you know, Neil Young playlists, and Sirius FX or Sirius XM. It's like having the Neil Young show and all this kind of stuff. So they're really making a field day with it.
Isn't there like a 30-day rule though? Like from the time that he decides to take it down, there's a 30-day window. I think there's something like that. Like he may have officially cut ties with him, but his music won't come down for another 30 working days or something like that.
Could be. Maybe.
Or, you know, it could also be just a headliner. You know, if you're writing a headline for a paper, it's so much easier to stretch the truth and say Neil Young's off Spotify, then Neil Young's off Spotify in America, everywhere else. Get yourself a VPN and listen to Neil Young in, you know, the UK. Like it's probably, you might be right. And I feel like, you know, that would make sense. But also, you know, the media is also very good at slightly stretching the truth in terms of getting a good headline.
Sure.
So, well, he looks like he's looking at something, doesn't he?
I was just checking.
The bright lights of the computer are shining on your face.
I was checking. I did hear that he actually did pull his music back in, I think, 2015. Basically over Spotify's less than hi-fi audio quality. He didn't pull it, and then he was back on like a few weeks later, so it didn't really stick. And then, so this is actually not the first time Neil Young has pulled his music. Just so you know. But he thinks just Arice said Neil Young was fed up with Spotify's shitty sound quality anyway. I do notice now, since I went to Apple Music, there is a little bit better audio quality from Apple Music as well. They have the master tracks on and they also have this like spatial audio feature that kind of adds. It's not on every album, but it's on some albums where it kind of adds this extra air to the sound, and kind of makes you feel like you're more in the room. And you can say, "Oh, there's the bassist is over there, the guitarist is over here." You can kind of hear it, let's say. Whereas, you know, Spotify is lacking on. They just have the one quality pretty much, and that's it. 320 kilobits a second or something like that.
What is that thing that I heard it with a Billie Eilish track where if you think she's in your left ear, she moves to your left ear, and if you think she's in your right, what's that called? There's a word for it.
Could be spatial audio.
Well, it's like your brain is listening. It's not your ears. So if
is it like binaural or something?
It's like binaural beats, yeah. But if you think she's in your left ear, it moves, and if it's amazing. Really amazing.
I'll have to look into that.
I'll find it and I'll link it to you after this.
But sure, Spotify, like, if you look bluntly at it, Spotify don't, at the moment in time, they don't need to innovate. Do you know? That's why certain companies just idle for ages. You know, there's no innovation. It's because simply Spotify is on top, you know, and why do they need to innovate? That's why you have stuff like Netflix. They didn't innovate for ages, and now they're doing all this promotional stuff. And they're like, we have all these stuff because you have like, you have Disney Plus, you have like Amazon Prime, you have all this stuff. So, and maybe Apple Music has all this nice stuff, but at the end of the day, people go, well, like when someone says streaming service, 99% of people will probably go, oh, Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify.
You know, and that's it. And that's like so much work done that Spotify doesn't have to do. You know, it's already done. It's already planted in people's heads. So what's the point of innovating? People are going to buy this thing anyway. And I think we had an episode, Colm, a while ago where we talked about like streaming services and kind of different audio qualities and different audio files and stuff like that. And like, that's great and all for people like us, you know, that are like interested in that and like can, you know, kind of intrigued by better audio quality and wanting to hear what more authentic stuff that's actually, it feels like it's coming exactly from the studio more so than into a system just being compressed and destroyed. But like, you know, the truth of it is majority of people probably don't care. They just, they're listening on a pair of in-ears. They don't really care about the quality. They just want to hear their favorite song. So that's why, another thing why Spotify probably does really need to look into that, you know?
Yeah, that's true as well. So it's just like yourself and myself and Colm that like our, you know, our nice audio. Most people play it through phone speakers anyway, so it's kind of...
You put it in a glass. Do you remember when you didn't have a speaker when you were into a glass?
But yeah, like, I suppose we mentioned last week a little bit, but the whole NFT sector of music potentially could be a good thing. It's not. I don't think it'll be like the savior of music, but it might be a nice little addition.
Can you explain to me what an NFT is? Because I've heard it talked about, but I don't know what an NFT is.
Okay. Now, again, I am absolutely no expert. I have an idea. But basically, an NFT is a digital asset. It could be a picture, it could be a piece of audio, it could be a piece of video, whatever it is, that's recorded on the blockchain. The blockchain basically this underlying foundation for like a cryptocurrency or, you know, particular crypto environment, let's say. So this one digital asset is linked and recorded on the blockchain. So there's a little token to verify that this piece of digital asset, whatever it is verified. It is what it says it is, and it's recorded on the blockchain. So it's this way of basically selling and trading digital assets, be it, you know, the normal NFT is like the Bored Ape picture, this kind of stuff, or what's that big artist that made like 90 billion back, can't think of his name there, but anyway, all that stuff is digital art, let's say, that can be sold and traded and made more of. Then there's the argument, why don't you just screenshot the NFT? You can, but that then doesn't have that little identity marker that says that this is the real item. So it's like a certificate of authenticity with a special, I don't know, guitar you bought or something like this. It's like that little signed paper to say this is valid, this is real, made by the original person. So that's like the idea behind an NFT. And then you can create your own NFTs, sell them, and people can sell them on, and you can then get a cut of how much it sells on for, all this kind of thing. So it's a big kind of out there theory. But the next thing people are talking about is actually release music as NFT. So you can release a track for, you know, your 3-minute track, sell it for €3, let's say. You're not going to expect to be paid €1,000 all of a sudden for a track or something like that. But you can make like 5,000 copies of this digital track. Each person can buy it for €3, and then they can sell it on if they want as well. They can sell it on for more if they want to. But you're basically selling that one piece of audio, and it's linked on the blockchain. It's this real identified thing. It's one of 5,000, so it's like a limited number, and the person can benefit from it themselves by listening to music and then indeed selling it on again. So it definitely beats the whole streaming aspect of it. You know, you might get, if a person streams your song 100 times on Spotify, you might get 10 cents if you're lucky, you know. Yeah. So like, what do you think of that, I suppose, approach to digital music?
Well, it sounds like a lot of work, doesn't it?
I suppose it would be, and it's not too difficult to, you just release your song, put like your album art, make a little video, put your album art on it and release the track, and then put up on, there's different marketplaces. I think there's OpenSea is one of them. There's a Solano one, a few different places. But you list them. But then again, it is getting the word out there that it's there. So it's like any kind of promotion of any release you might have, I suppose, in any way.
I think the big thing with NFTs is it's such an out there idea at the moment for people. People don't like the simple statement of like, well, I can just kind of screenshot a picture or I can buy the song on Bandcamp. What's the difference between buying it on Bandcamp than on this? I think where the interesting stuff comes in And this is probably far-fetched in the future. But Facebook is even doing it. You know this stuff with the multiverse? Do you ever hear this stuff? You hear this stuff, Colm?
No.
So like Facebook have made this thing called Metaverse. That's it.
Yeah. Multiverse. That's more.
That's it. Yeah. Dr. Strange. The Metaverse is basically like it's an online hub where you have like you're a little like avatar. You live, and the idea is they're gonna start building like companies in the multiverse where you can actually work a job in this virtual world. And there's a lot of weird skeptical stuff where the people think that it's going too far in terms of there'll be a point where people will live their whole lives through like VR multiverse. They'll walk, they'll like go to the cinema with their friends in this like digital world. But I think if that picked up in some regard, I think NFTs would, because you could buy something and then have it in the metaverse, and you could, that kind of way. But it's all that stuff is like definitely like, I know you're probably the exception, Copper, in being like, he's quite into it, but I feel like this will only kick off for like maybe a generation or two after us. Because I feel like we're getting to the stage now where we're like, it's like when TikTok came out. I was like, what the fuck is a TikTok? So I feel like I'm getting older, and I feel when this gets more and more, there'll be kids that are going to be 12 and will be like, what you mean you don't know what an NFT is? And they'll be looking at you with four heads, and you're kind of going, is it a cassette? So it's all. I feel like that's in the mad future, but maybe selling music on that, as you said, it's a different way of promoting.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of possibilities out there. I suppose the way I look at it is it's good to learn about these things as best you can. Try to get a little bit involved if you can, like now in the early stages, because then that might pay off in the longer term.
Yeah.
Instead of like, coming to TikTok after a few years when it's already saturated and, you can't, you make the best video ever and it gets 10 views. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, it's I think it's good to keep an eye on these things, even if you're not going to actually do anything about it just yet. Just keep an eye on things and be aware that this is happening. It could potentially be something, but it might not be either. That's the kind of thing. It's that in gray area now with the NFTs, they can be, there's potential for a lot of potential with them, but then there's a lot of overblown. It's like a big bubble at the moment as well. So it's kind of, I wouldn't go buying NFTs right now if anyone listening. Try to make some if you want and try to sell them, but don't go buying any because you probably pay way too much for it and you might not be able to sell it.
So I was only thinking now, as we're talking about like TikTok and all that, what is how do you, we always have talks on the show about social media, and like we're so in two cents about social media. Like for me, like it's, I wouldn't have it if I wasn't a musician. I would have deleted it years ago. It's so mentally draining, at times.
Yeah.
It can make you weirdly like emotionally kind of, you flip quickly. It's just, you see one thing. But how are you on TikTok? Are you on all the social medias? How do you feel about that?
No, I do Instagram and Facebook, but that's it. They're the only two I do.
Okay. And do you have an upload schedule? Do you upload when you just have something coming up?
No, I noticed that like at certain times of day it works better than others. So for example, late evening on a Sunday is pretty good. First thing on a Monday morning is pretty good. But I don't like set my alarm clock and have everything copied and pasted in my notes and then stick it on Instagram. Like, to be honest with you, I think the thing that we're all lacking now isn't looking at new ways to get our music to people. It's about the human to human contact. If I said to you, would you rather a virtual hug or a virtual kiss or the real thing, you'd opt for the real thing. And I think artists are like, I hate seeing this. Follow my Spotify. And I've no way to get to it. There's no link, nothing. And this is somebody who I never see any of them online. I never see a video where it's like just a little bit of face-to-face communication. The beauty of social media is you get a chance to bring your followers into your world. Here's day 2 in studio. Here's backstage before my gig with Niamh Keane, Amy Ness and Stephen Gormley. And here's us warming up vocals. Offer, like, by subscribing to your Instagram and Facebook, you should be offering people something that otherwise they wouldn't get. And I mean that physically. So, for example, the 15th or the 50th person to like this post gets mailed out a free. What I do is I'd send out like a customized piece of poetry or prose, a letter, a signed CD, my first album as well. You know, like a kind of a gift package. That's developing personal relationships with your followers. Keenan, you said yourself, like with Josh and the content he puts out, like if you live down the road from where he was gigging, you'd go. That's exactly the kind of relationship we should be looking to develop with all of our followers. Not, here's a picture of a half-filled cup of me piss set to 15 seconds of Only the Lonely by Roy Orbison. Share it with your, share. Like, I'm like, give me something that 150th person to like the post, I'll write a song to them. Or put in a name, I'll write a song about that name, and then there's your story, and 15 panels of your story is somebody puts in a name, Ruby, Rosemarie, Caitlin, you know what I mean? Maybe dudes, Noel, Clint, and you know, that's what keeps people interested. Whereas, like, I do a week, sort of a monthly live gig on the Cellar Door Sessions page on Facebook, and the Cellar Door is a wine bar in Florida, a town called Mount Dora. And every month there's I have 40, I suppose you call them patrons, who regularly tune in, and I'll tag them all, take requests from people. And then when the time the gig comes, everybody's watching, because there's a sense of inclusivity. And the people who watch for the first time are like, I like this. I want to get involved with this because it's a fun virtual exchange. But if you're just sitting there and it's like song, 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 you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know there's like allowances for both. But I think the gift that social media gives us is you have a facility to be live with however many people you want to interact with. And I think we need to find better ways of communicating with people, not more ways to communicate.
Yeah.
Very good, actually.
You wouldn't agree?
Nail on the head. No, you're a wordsmith. No, that's 100%. Yeah,
I've been taking notes here.
This is why I love Colm. Like, you ask him a question and he just has such a beautiful, poetic way of just wording it, and like kind of coming up with a really interesting kind of very brain-boggling idea. But like it's a great, like you hit the nail on the head. Where, you know, we should be looking for better ways to communicate and not more ways. I think everyone's like, what's the next thing? And everyone's especially, and I see it now, especially with younger musicians, people that are like, you know, people that are on social media and, you know, they have age 14 to like 19, you know, they're all racing for the next trend. They're keeping an eye on what's the hashtags. And like, I did it for a while. I remember when I was, I think it was during, like at the start of 2021, I was like, and I kept an eye on everything and I was watching it. And I'm going, okay, like, you know, and I had a friend that was mad on TikTok and, you know, he was checking, he was going to send him, okay, well, this hashtag's big today, maybe do something related to it. And it got exhausting. I didn't get the outcome I wanted. And I was like, I'm not, at the end of the day, when I started watching my content, I was just kind of almost just copy and pasting what other people were doing. And then so the idea of like, you know, videos about you and your life, you know, and you said Josh O'Keefe and his image of kind of that, like, you know, where's he from? He's from Derby, isn't he? And that's his big thing. It's like Derby, and he's over in he's part Irish, from Derby, over in
Nashville, isn't he? Yeah.
He's running wild, and like he just has this great, like, you know, and that's why I love stuff like Gems on VHS and like stuff like Western AF, because they have like 2 to 3 minutes before the song of just chatting. And it's not an interview chat. It's not like, so tell me who you are, what do you do, what's your music, fucking, you know, what do you eat for breakfast? It's very like, it's really interesting questions about like art and like thought process and like life goals. But it's not, you know, if you watch 20 interviews from this guy, he says the same thing. Like, it's questions that you will only get on this, and it's not even a question about him and his career. It's more about him as a person and his like maybe his moral standing or his thought process or the way he writes in a really unique way. And I think the more we display that on social media, the more like people will take little bits out of it, you know, and your character starts forming, and then that's where, you know, personalities and images come into play. It's not just about how you look. It's not just about what you wear. It's also about how you present yourself and how you allow people to perceive you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What is your sense, Copper? Cowboy Copper?
Sure. Look, I think, me and social media, we have a on again, off again kind of relationship, I suppose. But I've been kind of off it now the last few weeks, just kind of taking a little break, take a breather from the constant update and the constant likes and hashtags and because I've been working on a bit of music and stuff. So I just, you know, detach a little bit so I can actually work on what I'm trying to promote eventually. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose we're coming to the end of our glorious episode here right now. I'm sure Colm would love to come back some other time. We'll have a more deep and introspective chats about music topics. But I suppose before we go and before we share our socials, do you have any dad jokes there, Keen?
I actually don't.
You don't? Okay, well I have one.
You know what? I'll leave this one up to you for this week. Usually I go searching last minute for dad jokes because, you know, Copper just seems to fit the role perfectly of the man who tells dad jokes. So, you know, that's why I'm the co-host here, Colm. You know,
well, I have two for you anyway. This is, did you hear that Ireland is the fastest growing country in Europe? Its population is always doubling.
Very good.
There we go. Yeah.
Very good.
And did you hear about the Irishman that drank 100 litres of stout in just 30 minutes? They're calling it a Guinness World Record. No.
Very nice.
Lovely.
That's the humour you get on this podcast.
That's the level. But where, Colm, can people find you and your music and your socials and your see what kind of I suppose a relationship you have with your father? Where can they actually go see that?
So it's sort of keep up to speed with everything that I do. On Facebook, Colm Gavin Music is usually the place to go. And then on Instagram, just Colm Gavin. And now I can actually say that you know you're on my page because it's got that blue verified tick on Instagram. That you're not being swayed by Colm Gavin who works for Vodafone and Knockmitten, you know what I mean? But no, that's
the real deal.
It always helps because it nudges people in the right direction. But for the moment, like my music is on Spotify, Deezer, Pandora in the States, for anybody who's tuning in the States, Apple Music, Google Play, all the good streaming and download services, with the exception of TikTok.
Music off Spotify anyway.
No, you made a good point at the start where you said that why make things more difficult for people? Like if it made a difference, like if I had 13 million listeners, I'd say, okay, well, you're paying me substantially to be here, so I'm gonna take my business somewhere else. But it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference if I took my stuff off Spotify. So
that's the kind of sad truth. It wouldn't matter if any of us took our music off.
Maybe you, Copper. You know, I know you have like a multi-million following up in Cavan. You know, housewives of Cavan.
All those millions in Cavan.
Well, you know.
I suppose where can they find you, Keenan?
They can find
music.
You know, it doesn't change. It hasn't changed since episode 1, but you can find me, Keenan Flannery Music, Kenan, and then Flannery. Not everyone always spells before his name, arseways, but it's fine. We'll get it someday. You know? Keenan and Kel, that's what I usually say.
Lives on soda.
Kel lives on soda.
But we should also take this opportunity to plug, there's a big busk on the 11th of February.
There is.
In Clondalkin Village, in the gardens of the East Village, which is the restaurant cum cafe, which is slap bang in the heart of Clondalkin Village, and will be under the tower. And we actually have some amazing artists. I don't even know if I can announce them yet, but there's a couple of household names who'll be joining us. I know Keenan, you're with us, Copper. I know you're between two minds. I don't know if you be joining us.
Hopefully she'll be able to make it.
Wonderful. So it's going to be on the 11th of Feb. 7:30. This is the first time we've ever done a busk for the Kieran Carr Foundation that hasn't been at Christmas time. And it's a one-off. Otherwise, it will always be at Christmas time. It's always been. But because it's Kieran's 10-year anniversary, we're going to do it at Christmas time. Keenan, you can tell the listeners what it was like. I mean, we had somewhere between 220 and 250 people standing in front of us. The whole of Main Street was actually taken over with people.
It was incredible. Like, and it was like a wave of people came out of nowhere. Like, I showed up like a few minutes early with my family, and I was setting up, and all of a sudden I turned me back and I turned around, and there's 250 people staring at you going, Jesus Christ. But it was phenomenal. It was a great experience. It was so lovely, and I think it embodied that Christmas spirit. You know, I think with Ireland now, restrictions being lifted, it was almost like, it was like the pre-drinks of it, you know? I think it gave me that feeling of, we haven't had a Christmas like this in a long time. The busk was incredible. And, you know, so if you're in Ireland, and especially Dublin, you should definitely come down on the 11th. It'll be something like you don't want to miss. And it's
also a celebration for your birthday, Colm, is that right?
Yeah, the 12th.
The download.
The 12th is my birthday. And so afterwards, but yeah, the whole occasion itself is kind of you know what, Christmas, well, at the time of your birthday, Facebook nudges you to sponsor a charity. So it's like that, the American Cancer Society, Breast Cancer Awareness Ireland, they prompt you with these different charities. The Kieran Carr Foundation doesn't have a facility like that where you can just virtually donate. So I thought, well, for my birthday, what's the one charity that instantly will come to mind? And it's always the CC Foundation. So I thought, given that it was his 10-year anniversary, and then also because at Christmas time, there was a huge amount of people who messaged and said, we'd love to be there, but they were just a little bit cautious with the way Omicron was. Yeah. So now that restrictions have lifted, and people can go with a little more peace of mind, it gives those people an opportunity to experience what we had at Christmas time as well. So there's a multitude of reasons why you would and should come down on the 11th.
Class. Great.
Awesome.
And so I suppose if you want to go along to that, go follow Colm over on his social media, you get updates on that. You can also follow the podcast on the Art Saddle podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and myself, Hopper Kelly Music on Instagram, Facebook, and all those good places. But also we have a Patreon. We have bonus episodes every week where we talk a whole heap of more shite. Colm, if you want to hang on after this call and chat for another, say, 20 minutes or so about movies and music and whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Whatever way the conversation takes us.
Absolutely.
If you want to hang around and stuff. So if you want to be a Patreon, go over to patreon.com/The Art Saddle Podcast. And for as little as €1 a month, you can get subscribed to it, and you can get bonus episodes after we record and release a main episode. There's always going to be a little bonus episode. But I suppose, Keenan, do you want to add any more to the end of the podcast before we say goodbye to the lovely people?
No, I think you gave them your fill, you know?
Yeah.
I think you gave them everything. You know, I can't send them over sloppy seconds to me. You've given them enough. So I think
blowing kisses.
I think Colm, it's been phenomenal to have you on. You've been a long-awaited guest in both of our minds. You know, we've since the beginning we actually were saying we get Colm on, so it's been a real pleasure, and I'm sure it won't be the first and only time.
Pleasure, lads. Thanks so much.
That's it. And I forgot to mention, you were on my other podcast. Well, actually, the two other podcasts. The Poking Around, we interviewed you on that. It just seems like a year ago now at this stage, nearly. And then Copper's Corner podcast, you came on, we talked about Elvis Costello. That was a good crack as well. So if you want to go check them out as well. But all links to our socials and stuff will be in the description below. And Colm, did you want to say anything there? I think you were looking.
Just that we should entice people now to nudge over to Patreon so they can hear the rest of our enthralling conversation that we're about to segue into.
That's it. But that's it for this week. And hopefully we all see you again next week. And that's a goodbye from me.
Slán a while from me.
Keenan, and a goodbye from Colm. All the best.